the President has repeatedly told Congress to pass his stimulus package immediately. This began during his joint address to Congress last week when he said at one point, "I am sending this Congress a plan that you should pass right away. You should pass this jobs plan right away. Pass this jobs bill, pass this jobs bill," close quote. Immediately following the President's joint address to the Congress, Press Secretary Jay Carney declared, quote, "The President will submit a bill early next week, the American Jobs Act, which will specify how he proposes paying for the American Jobs Act." The bill that was transmitted to Congress Monday afternoon does not contain any fiscal tables, costs for any of its provisions actually, how those provisions will be paid for and when the pay for will occur, or even an overall price tag for the bill. So I sent a letter yesterday to the President's Director of the Office of Management and Budget, Jack Lew, asking that this information be provided to the Congress at once. But so far we've had no response. Part of the reason we need this information is that the total cost of the President's bill may be much higher than advertised. That's been the pattern around here. No one should be surprised. When the President said his plan would be paid for, he did not specify if he meant the total cost to include increased interest resulting from the borrowed money to be spent immediately, or just the cost of the jobs provision alone, actually how much goes out the door. Depending on when the money is spent out and when it is paid back, assuming it is ever paid back, interest costs resulting from just this bill's borrowing could top $100 billion. The problem with looking at it as a 10-year matter is that the debt's not going to be paid off probably in 10 years. Most of the debts we run up will be part of our deficit. If we're going to raise taxes to fund a new program, maybe we ought to raise taxes to pay off the debt we've got instead of spending it on a new program. And the debt that we have distributes American wealth to people who hold our debt all over the world. So in my letter to OMB, I request tables showing the year-by-year tables for this bill's budgetary impact, including projected changes to the deficit for each of the next 10 years. And if the President wants to advocate for a sharp, near-term increase in the deficit in exchange for the possibility of an undefined economic future, for the possibility of a stimulus, he ought to make that argument clearly to the American people. I believe the President also needs to be honest in admitting that the bill's short-term cost would wipe out, obliterate the $7 billion in savings next year resulting from the debt limit deal. We are projected under that agreement that Congress ratified to reduce spending $7 billion. That's all. It's all that would be reduced from this year to next year in actual spending levels. So I ask my colleagues, don't we need to be careful? After all the effort we took to achieve that much savings, shouldn't we think very, very carefully about a new stimulus plan that would spend $450 billion, obliterating that savings? Let's flash back to February. The Office of Management and Budget Director Jack Lew said this, quote, this was when the President submitted his budget for the next 10 years. It was brought up here on the floor of the Senate. In fact, I brought it up, and it was voted down 97-0. But this is what Mr. Lew said about that budget. Quote, "Our budget will get us over the next several years to the point where we can look the American people in the eye and say we're not adding to the debt anymore. We're spending money we have each year. And then we can work on bringing down the national debt. And he says this is going to pay down the debt and wouldn't be adding more to the debt if we passed his budget, when his budget spent more, taxed more, and ran up more debt. The most irresponsible budget, I believe, ever submitted to the Congress of the United States. We have breached, I'm afraid, our economic debt limit. America's $14.5 trillion gross debt is now 100% of our GDP, our economy. Experts tell us we have already crossed a dangerous threshold. Our debt is pulling down growth and putting a damper on job creation right now.